Yes, Senator Gallagher.
Mr Joyce, you've consistently said, and I think the transcript will reflect this, we, in respect to the decision made, and on at least 2 occasions you've corrected that and said I. Was there more than one person involved in the decision to ground the airline, or did you?
No, it was. I sometimes use we because I work with a team, but it was my decision.
And there was no consultation with anybody else. So the fact that you've said we repeatedly for an hour in answer to direct questions about this is wrong.
I've said I made a decision very clearly on multiple occasions, and I said that I did consult with the board to get their endorsement, and that endorsement was given unanimously by the board to it. The decision was mine.
Thank you. I'll just read the transcript with interest.
Okay.
Just out of interest, if I can add, Alan's executive team was not told until midday.
I was curious about the we, that's all.
Okay.
It's maybe my phraseology. I use we a lot because I like to involve the team, but on this occasion, to be absolutely clear, I made the decision.
All right, that's been explained. Senator Cameron.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Mr Joyce, can I just firstly indicate so many questions, so little time. I'll certainly be arguing. I know I'm a bit frustrated. I know Senator Xenophon is a bit frustrated. Certainly we would be arguing to bring you back because there's so many issues that have been raised by your responses, and I would certainly like a chance to have a look at Hansard to actually focus my questions more carefully. So that might be, certainly that I'm just alerting you that that'll be an argument I'll be putting up. Mr Johnson, you actually look familiar. I'm sure we've come across each other maybe in the past. Did you work for Freehills?
No, sir.
Did you do any work for Rio Tinto?
No, sir.
You've done none of that?
No.
It must just be the Freehills look. It must be the Freehills look.
Work for Senator Betts,
I've had the pleasure of working for Qantas for 17 years, Senator.
17 years, okay. Mr Joyce, I had a look at one of your corporate glosses recently, and it spoke about the visions and values of Qantas. It raised a number of what it said were visions and values, safety being number one, and we've gone through that approach interminably, I think. Then the other one was transparency and honesty, and the third one was customer focus, and the fourth was collaboration and teamwork. And there's another couple which I don't think are really that important for my line of questioning. But given that you were not transparent, in my view, and not honest with the government in terms of what you were intending to do, I want to just go through a number of issues. Industrial action was being undertaken. That's the argument that you've put. Industrial action was being undertaken in the lead-up period to the decision to ground the fleet.
So is that question, Senator?
Industrial action was being undertaken. That's your argument.
We had industrial action, which I clearly outlined was causing us huge problems.
Yeah, and there was threatening. There was threatened industrial action.
There was threats on the Friday of the AGM. There was industrial action,
yeah,
as you're aware.
So there was impending industrial action as well.
There wasn't any impending, but there was rhetoric about the possible industrial action going forward. But the decision was made on the action that had already taken place.
No, just let me finish.
Yeah.
You've gone through that. So there was a probability of further industrial action.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A probability of further industrial action. You argued that the industrial action that had taken place so far and the industrial action that was threatened or impending was a danger to the ongoing viability of Qantas. Is that correct?
Yes.
Qantas is a significant part of the Australian economy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Many businesses rely on Qantas not only to ferry goods and services, but executives and workers around the country. Is that correct?
Yes.
and the grounding of, or the threatened grounding of Qantas certainly would have a significant effect, not just on individuals, but a widespread area of the population.
As the industrial action was having in the build-up to our action, and as the industrial action would have had if it occurred for the next year, actually it would have been a lot worse, Senator, because what we were seeing was so many people that were impacted in all parts of the community. As I said, what we were seeing was large elements of the business community not travelling with Qantas and not travelling. And as I said, Senator, what we were seeing is Qantas bleeding by $15 million a week. We had all of those problems, so it was going to happen, and it was going to happen, as somebody said, we were going to be slow-baked over a year, so this was going to get worse for us, and it was going to be in a position where it was not sustainable.
I mean, let's talk about the public for a minute and not just Qantas. That's what I'm interested in. You've said plenty about Qantas. So, with this impending industrial action, you've conceded it was threatened. So some people rely on Qantas for their health care. They have to get from remote areas in Qantas flights to major hospitals in terms of their health, don't they?
Yes, they do.
So some people would have their health endangered by the industrial action. Is that correct?
I think that was the real dilemma for us, I have to say, Senator, because with the talk of 72 hours, this dispute...
No, I'm not asking. I'll come back to that. I'm just asking a simple question that some people would have had their health affected. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the same issue for the industrial action that was taking place with the unions.
So,
we were in a position that was occurring for months, and the plans for people travelling were being disrupted by the union action quite more considerably than the action that we're talking about.
So the welfare of the population and parts of the population were under threat by this pending and ongoing industrial action.
We had that, I think, across the board.
Yeah, it caused significant damage to the Australian economy.
Well, up till, I think you know, Senator, that Fair Work Australia actually said that up till then there wasn't sufficient damage done to the Australian economy because what was taking place was a slow bake over a long period of time, and eventually it would have gotten there, but it hadn't gotten there at that stage.
Yeah. So, what you've just outlined to me in response to questions is the outline of Section 424 of the Act. You have just now satisfied every aspect of Section 424 of the Industrial Relations Act in terms of the issues that the full bench would need to consider to terminate industrial action.
No, we didn't, Senator, because in a ruling...
I'll ask you them all again.
Yeah,
then if you're going to change your evidence, then that's okay. Then change it. But you have just outlined and satisfied every aspect of Section 424.
As I said, up till that point of time, Senator, I said we didn't hit the national interest measure because, and that's what Fair Work Australia, it's not me that you have to listen to on this one, because Fair Work Australia, when they made a ruling at the weekend, said it wouldn't have reached the threshold, and it was very clear it didn't reach the threshold. Yeah. It was the grounding of the fleet that reached the threshold. Eventually it would have gotten there, but you wouldn't have had a Qantas left. If in a year's time this action had continued and we had died the death of 1,000 cuds, and that was the ruling of Fair Work Australia.
Look, you've gone through all of that.
Very clear.
You've gone through all of that, but I'm saying to you, I'm saying to you that the threatening of the industrial action. Well, I don't know what's happening. I don't know. I'm trying to ask a question.
Good point.
I'm asking that the threatening of that industrial action, I'm sure you've pored over Section 424. I'm sure Mr Johnson has given you advice, and did you get advice from Freehills on 424?
We give advice, as every big company would, Senator, from a range of legal
Did you get
advice.
advice from Freehills?
We did, and Blake's and internal advice.
So you got advice from the union-busting company Freehills, right?